I'll call our meeting back to order. We now have a public hearing. This is a liquor license violation hearing. This is a hearing that's continued from Monday, August 24th. That hearing was duly posted and noticed, and upon the request of the applicant was continued until tonight at 7:30. We have, and if anyone is going to be speaking on this, is for the Zhu restaurant doing business as Hong Kong restaurant. If there's anyone here who's going to be speaking tonight concerning this hearing, will they please rise? If anyone's going to be speaking, they need to rise. Okay. Okay. If you would just raise your right hand, saying, "I swear that what I will tell will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth."
I swear whatever I tell will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Okay. If you'd please note that everyone who has stood has sworn that they will be telling the truth, please. Okay, thank you very much. And this concerns a violation of the liquor laws with a June 9th, 2015. A Falmouth police detective and a Falmouth liquor agent witnessed the sale of alcoholic beverage to a youth buyer in the establishment of the Zhu restaurant, Hong Kong restaurant. Okay. Would you like to say a few words on your behalf? If you would come up to the podium and tell us your name and tell us the incidents.
My name is Fan Chen. I've been owning the restaurant, Hong Kong restaurant for 15 years. That day, when Tuesday night, I'm the only one on the floor. Tuesday night before 7 o'clock, the bar was full and the dining room full. I was crazy busy. Then the girl I saw for the minor, she's the number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Her face looked like a 24, 25. Doesn't look like the minor. And afterwards, usually I always check the ID before serving. But the day I was restless, I don't ask her. She asked me, "Can I get the bag light?" I give it to her. Then I went to the floor. Then by the time the police come in, so that's why I always check it. That's at least one thing.
And you're saying, who do you check?
That day I didn't check her ID because I was crazy busy. The dining was packed and the bar was full. She sit in the last one. I saw him for her. I don't ask her to get an ID. But her face looked like a 24, 25. Doesn't look like the minor. It's my fault. I was supposed to check it. But I was restless. I didn't ask her to get an ID.
For both you and your staff, who do you feel you should be checking IDs for?
Any time when the customer come in, they ask serving the beer. I see the face even dirty. I still checking. Last week I checked for 142. He was laughing. I said I had to. This is my job, I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay, well, I just want to be clear. Is it someone who's 25 or someone who looks 30? Is that your policy to check their ID?
I do check it.
For under 25 or under 30, in your opinion?
You talk about the one for last times? Usually when I see the face, sometimes the people's face look like older, but I still like to check it. But the day I was busy, but I have no time to kind of rest there, so I don't ask her to show me the ID.
Okay.
No more time, I always ask the customer to check the ID before I give to them.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes.
Yep.
What was the basis upon which you asked for the continuance?
Say one more time?
We were supposed to meet earlier,
Yeah.
and you weren't here.
Yeah, I was here because you know why I tried the extension today? I tried to ask my son to come in to help me, but he asked for 2 weeks extension for September. But you have no meeting on September when today. But today he have to out to stay for meeting. He can't come to help me. That's why. So I don't want to push the change today again.
And you wanted him here to help with your English understanding.
Yes.
But I see you're doing quite fine with English, now that the
Thank you.
busy season is over.
Ms. Flynn, did you have a question?
It's just a little difficult for me to think about how busy you can be and the one time that you did not ask for ID was when you served a minor. I just have to think about that sentence, because you're serving an awfully lot of people, and you ask everyone for their ID,
When they see the face, yeah.
but you ask everyone for an ID?
Not everyone, depends the age. If you walk in, I'm not gonna ask him. But some
But,
young people, you know,
But why wouldn't you?
when I see the face, I'm not too sure they might know what I have to ask him, you know.
Well, maybe that's not a very good rule to have.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just thinking that if you are working there by yourself and it's very, very busy, it should never be too busy to ask someone for their license.
But not busy all the time, usually Tuesdays, should not be busy in the day. But I don't know why, even the bar, the 7 people sit the whole bar, you know, and the people on the floor, they all sit almost full, you know. Usually it's not the regular time, they can't be on Tuesday.
Have there been any other violations recently at your establishment?
I'd like to hear from the police.
Okay. Chief Dunn, could we hear from, on whether there have been any recent violations?
And also the facts.
Excuse me, I believe last year when we did the alcohol compliance, there was a violation also.
Okay.
This will be the second year. Now, I can have our alcohol compliance officer, Detective Seminole, was the one that went out at that particular time, if you care to hear from him as to what they observed.
For both years, was he the one? Yeah. If you would comment on both incidents, please.
Sergeant Seminole, Falmouth Police Liquor Compliance Officer.
And so what happened last year?
Same exact, similar events.
Okay.
I believe it was they said it was a temporary employee just filling in for the weekend that was there. A male employee. This time it was the manager who actually sold.
And this time it's on Tuesday, June 9th, so just a normal evening?
It was quite busy in the restaurant area. I believe the bar only had, I believe, one. It's only a 7-person bar in the restaurant, I believe, approximately 7 seats, I'm not sure. But the restaurant was quite busy, and the manager was hustling around the dining room pretty good. But just when I asked, why she didn't card the person, she just said she was busy. That was her excuse.
And it was not it wasn't a night that any would have any reason why it would be busy. It wasn't they were hosting some big event and we went that night.
Just a average Tuesday.
Okay. Ms. Flynn?
I'd like to ask Ms. Chen,
Thank you very much,
question?
Sergeant Seminole.
if you wouldn't mind coming back up. Who works the bar besides you? Does anyone else, any of your other employees work the bar?
Weekday, and me and my husband.
You and your husband
Yeah,
work
but
the
the
bar?
day he was in Boston. Then weekend, I have a girl helping me for certain times. Usually our bus not busy at all, you know what I mean? I don't know why that day the 7 people sit there and the floors, the seat is full. I don't know why, Usually we'll be busy, we hire more people, but not that busy on Tuesday.
Are either you and or your husband tips certified? You have the certification for tips for,
Me, I do have.
okay. And he does also? Or are you the only one?
Yeah, I only one, but most I handle the drink. He just help me the grab table or serving the food. I'm the one, yeah. I have the tips.
But is he tip certified, your husband? No. Are there any other employees who are tip certified besides
No.
you? You're the only one.
Yeah.
What happens if you're not there? Or you're,
I be there every day.
You're
15
there all
years.
the time?
Yeah, I can't be out. I can't be sick. I be there all the time. You see my customer, they know I'm the one on the floor all the time. See me even today, I have no time for my lunch before I come here.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
So I'm going to be working there part-time. I am tip certified, and
And you are?
policy.
We need name.
State your name.
Oh, Kathleen Anderson. So I'm going to be helping her out and working there part-time. I am tip certified, and the new policy is that literally every single person gets carded no matter what you look like. So even if, you didn't have an ID and I was sure that you were of age, it still wouldn't happen with the new manager code that we are going under from now on. due to the instances that have happened in the past, so.
And are you currently employed there, or you're,
I'm not, but I'm going to be working there probably in the winter because I have another full-time job that I don't work at for about 3 months.
Is the restaurant closed Monday nights?
No, we open every day.
So who's handling the bar right now? If there are no tip certified servers?
Actually, I had one girl, she helped me a couple hours, and my husband is over here. It's not the kind of, the piece of the bar.
So the bar is closed now?
We don't do any close, but by the time it won't be busy. Now it's probably dead now. Even the dining room's nobody.
So nobody's checking IDs at the bar now?
When, if, in case someone didn't come, they will check it.
Who will check it?
One of the girls, she works a couple hours. She's still over there because I'm here. Usually she leaves 7:30. But by the time I'm here, I told her to stay over there. And my husband over there too.
so who works serving drinks? Give us the entire list of whoever serves drinks at your...
Today the special. Normal times me, but today I'm here. If in case someone come, they both have the serving. But today only the special day. I'm sure it could be no one over there. Usually, our lesson most serving those the elderly people more. That's why they don't have that much drink. But everybody want like the tea or water.
I wish you had been at the other hearing, so you could have heard what the other restaurants are trying to do to prevent this from happening. Because it is, your business doesn't come close to doing what most of the other businesses, the responsibility they're taking to prevent underage liquor from underage people buying liquor. The extent with which they're going and training and putting up notifications and working at this is quite impressive. What you are doing isn't. And I wish you had been here so you could understand it isn't us saying it, it's these other businesses are also taking that responsibility. Okay, is there any more questions?
Well, I guess, do you have any plans to have any of your other employees tip certified?
For the winter time, like she's just saying, yeah, she has 3 months. She can helping me during the winter.
But what happens if you're not there and she's not there? Like tonight,
I don't
for
decide anything
instance.
yet. Yeah.
I mean, I would think that you would want to have somebody else there tip certified as a backup.
Okay.
I mean, I would think that would be
I will
think
ask
that would be
my
a
husband
very
to do-
wise management decision to make.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, comments before we close the hearing? Yep.
Public.
I would just say as a comment, I mean, this is 2 years in a row. I think the penalty is going to be much stiffer if you can't manage your restaurant appropriately where it comes to serving alcoholic beverages.
Any other comment? Okay, I entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Public comment?
I
Oh.
asked if there's any other comment.
Oh,
Can I actually comment? I didn't.
Sure. Actually, well, we do have to get you to swear that what you're going to tell is the truth and nothing but the truth.
Have I ever done anything but? I do.
Thank you, Mr. Fitterman.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. I just wanted to say, in her defense or whatever, I go there fairly often, and I've been going there for 15 years, and it just struck me, I've never gone in there and eaten when Mrs., I'm sorry, I don't know your name, was not there. I mean, it seems like she's there, 90 hours a week. That's all I just wanted to add.
Mr. Fitterman, have they carded you recently?
No,
Thank you.
but I don't drink when I go there.
Okay. Then they wouldn't card you, would they?
No.
Motion to close the hearing?
second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. The hearing is closed. Thank you. Now for our deliberations.
The last liquor hearings we had, many of the restaurants were closed very busy nights. If I remember correctly, there was a continuance asked for in this case in order to have a effectively a translator available. It's now also the second violation. I am afraid about the possibility of someone leaving the restaurant underage or intoxicated, not having a tip-certified bartender right there serving, watching, carding. I'm thinking about New Year's Eve.
Either that or increase the number of days of suspension. I mean, that's.
I think the thing
That
that,
out there.
I think the thing that I think about is once the underage people know that a police will serve them underage, that spreads incredibly fast. And to set this scenario up that it was a busy night and she couldn't get all the drinks served, and I just think there's a great danger in that. So New Year's Eve is appropriate. Multiple days could be appropriate.
I think a fine could also be appropriate.
I think a
Okay.
fine
I think
could
a
be.
fine would also, might also be appropriate in this case, for it to be the second time it's happened.
Or both.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
A closing and a fine.
I think that I'm really taken aback by the lack of
Oh,
understanding the
absolutely.
seriousness of it. It happened last year, and the idea that, she looked 24, these other places are saying anyone under 30, if there's any question. I'm just not sure that the message has gotten through that this is a real problem.
It is.
And,
is.
I think one of the concerns some of the other restaurants had is when we close the restaurants or suspend the liquor license for that time, it ends up being some of their employees who, quote, foot the bill.
Right.
In some ways, I think a fine might be an appropriate additional punishment to make sure it really hits home to the restaurant owner that,
It's serious.
I have a question for the chief.
Yep.
Chief?
clarification as opposed to testimony.
Yes, a
since we closed the hearing.
clarification
Right.
of the last year's suspension. Was that within the last 12 months, or was that just within the last calendar year? Or prior to, or longer than 12 months? Do you have any, well, it's not,
Yeah,
It was May 2014, I think.
You're right, May
it was in 2014?
14,
Okay. And this one occurred in
15,
June 2015.
June 15.
2015?
So 13 months.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is at least clarify what the findings are. First is that there was a violation because of a sale to an underage individual on June 9th, 2015. Second is that this was the second violation in the past 2 years. Third, that there was only one person serving alcohol at the time on a very busy night. Yep.
Another finding was that it was the actual manager that served the beverage
Yeah.
illegally, who was tip certified.
Right.
And add on the
that-
only person who
the
is
only-
tip certified.
Right, as part of that finding, the manager served who was the only tip certified person at the restaurant. And there was no evidence of any stated policy, written or proclaimed, about their checking
Practice.
age,
Yeah.
checking ID. So those would be the findings. Are we comfortable with those findings? Is what's happened?
Yes.
Okay. So next is what do we think is an appropriate action to take? We've had one suggestion of New Year's Eve.
Well, I have a suggestion, perhaps of a $300 fine and a 3-day suspension.
I'd agree with that.
Dates to be determined by us.
Dates to be determined by us.
I like one of the dates being very almost immediate, so that somehow that message saying, yep, right now, and whether we do them consecutive or whether we pick a date, that's one of the third ones is being New Year's Eve.
And the recommendation that there be sufficient people tip certified so that the restaurant can continue to operate, or so that if the,
I would be
maybe
comfortable with
with
asking
2 people
everyone who
tip-
is serving alcohol be tip certified.
that would be appropriate.
And so my first recommendation would be anyone serving alcohol be tip certified at this establishment. my first part of my, of the decision. The second part, I think, would be a $300 fine. And the third would be a 3-day suspension of the liquor license with still determination of when those dates are going to be, so,
They don't have to be consecutive.
no.
It's just
No,
a
they
question,
don't.
just a
No,
question.
they don't.
It's a 3-day suspension of the liquor license,
That's
but,
the only thing we can suspend.
Yeah.
right.
On the note of the liquor licenses, with the exception of one who's appealing it, we have had confirmation that the other suspensions were up, those establishments did suspend their liquor licenses and did not sell alcohol on that day.
We could put it around Columbus Day weekend.
Do you want them to be consecutive?
No, they
I'm not
don't
sure if
have
that's
to be.
more,
No, I think the New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve is the biggest
Mhm.
night
I think
for
that's-
some restaurants. I wouldn't have a 3-day suspension
If you
include.
did New Year's Eve, I wouldn't go 3 days either. I think that's.
Well, I'm not saying I would say New Year's Eve in 2 days, I'm saying. You're saying 3 in total.
3 in total, but I would either do New Year's Eve, but I think the
Or-
proposal was 3 days. I wouldn't do New Year's Eve if it was going to be a 3-day suspension. That's just my view.
I would suggest if we're going to do 3, I would do the next 3 Mondays, which is Columbus Day and then the 2 Mondays after. And I think it's a little more consistent with what we did with the other establishments, which was a Monday.
That makes
But
sense.
a little bit harsher also. So that is an
I'm okay
immediate one
with
then where
that.
they hear it right away. And so that would be
Okay.
October 12th, 19th, and 26th.
Okay. Okay.
So the regular,
So the motion is for a $300 fine and for a suspension for 3 consecutive Mondays beginning October 10th. 12th, rather.
19th, and 26th,
12th,
and a requirement that anyone serving alcohol in the establishment is tip certified.
Certified.
That's
And
the
are
motion.
are you putting a time on the 3 Mondays? Are you saying?
It's all
like,
day.
Exact
the-
date.
The whole day?
Yep.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, Mr.
Okay.
Patterson,
Second?
second by Ms. Moffett. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Do you understand?
I will explain it to her.
Please make sure she does. Be aware that if there is a violation of it, it could be a very, very serious response to it.
Absolutely understood.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we're back to our interviews. First is back to the Water Quality Management Committee. We have 1 vacancy terminating June 30th, 2017. 2 applicants, Matthew Charette and Jessica Lambert. Are either of those 2 people here this evening? Matthew? And is Jessica also here?
Unless you want to finish recreation. No, okay.
Mr. Charette, if you would please introduce yourself? Sure. And tell us, come to the podium, and tell us why you'd like to serve on this committee.
Okay, my name is Matthew Charette. I'm a Falmouth resident since 1998, about 17 years now. I first came to the town as a postdoctoral scholar at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution to start a program on groundwater inputs to the coastal zone, specifically to look at the impacts of nutrients and other chemicals on water quality in the coastal environment. I did quite a bit of work on the Wacoit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve, published a number of studies on nutrient inputs in that setting. And one of the main aspects of the research that I do is basic research. So I, in short, identify the scope of a problem, but I don't typically identify any solutions. And so I guess my main interest in serving on this committee is to be a part of a process that's coming up with some solutions for dealing with our nutrient problem.
Questions from the board? Mr. Patterson?
The Water Quality Management Committee has generated a targeted wastewater management plan that takes a look at the question of what would we do if we're not able to meet the total maximum daily loading of nitrogen as a result of sewering the Little Pond area. What kind of evidence would you be looking for to decide just what kind of phased implementation of some of these alternate projects that might occur in the watershed of the Little Pond area?
So could you just repeat the last part?
What-
If the sewering is not able to,
To get the TMDL for nitrogen down to the required levels, what kind of evidence would you be looking for in trying to make an educated judgment as to additional projects?
that's a good question. You probably need, additional study on the estuary itself to determine the scope of the problem. One of the big issues is giving enough time for the sewering to take effect. There's quite a lot of nutrients in the system already. It's going to take years for those nutrients to flush out. And then there's quite a lot of nutrients stored within the estuary itself. Those need to be flushed out as well. So the biggest thing would be giving it time to determine if the sewering worked. And then after that, we look at the scope of the problem that's remaining and decide which alternatives might be best suited to dealing with that. I assume economics would be a big issue, whether it be reactive barriers or some of the other alternatives.
Thank you. Ms. Muffin?
Have you gone to any of the water quality management meetings?
I have not gone in person, but I've watched several of them on the FCTV website.
Okay. And do you know any of the members?
I do. I've worked somewhat closely with a couple of the members a couple of years ago, Wynn Monroe and Steve Layton, to try and get a workshop together on nitrogen attenuation in groundwater. We weren't able to get external funding for that, but I got to know those two fairly well in discussing.
And this
the
was
proposal.
a few years ago?
This was, I think, in 2013.
And this is our first time that we have a vacancy for you to talk about being on the committee?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. It's certainly the first time that I'm interested to put some time into it.
Okay, because you understand the responsibility that you accept when you go on to the committees and the amount of time that you do on with them.
Certainly.
Okay.
Your application,
I was going to say, that was really my question, I guess, is what prompted you at this point? Because you surely have the knowledge and the experience to be a member of the committee, because they do delve a lot into the science, as you probably know.
Sure.
And so I heard that, so now I don't need you to answer that unless you want to add something to it.
Yeah, one event that happened recently was I gave a talk at the Wacoit Bay Reserve's Coffee House series back in April, I think, of this year. It was very well attended. There was quite a number of members of the Water Quality Management Committee in attendance there as well, and we had some nice discussions after that event, and that's one reason why I'm here today.
Well, that's good. I think when you attend the events like that, you realize that there are a lot of people in the community that do offer their time to work on projects like that. And I think sometimes that might be a spark that might interest somebody else in saying, well, I could do that too. And you could, because of your background. So I'm very pleased that you applied.
any questions?
I do
Thank
have
you.
one.
Yep,
I
sorry.
do have one more because you have a pretty broad background. Nitrogen is obvious, the nitrogen compounds are obviously our primary target because they're the fertilizer for algae. But is there another compound that you think that we should be worrying about?
Well, it depends on what you're worried about. If you're worried about just water clarity and water quality, recreation, things of that nature, nitrogen is the one that we have to worry about. If you're worried more about ecology on a much finer scale, you might have to start worrying about some of the emerging contaminants of concern, pharmaceuticals, fire retardants, other persistent organic compounds, as they're called. That would be the next big thing that we might have to worry about, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great, thanks. And Jessica Lambert, is she here? Okay. Well, we have those two applicants. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'm sorry, isn't Jessica going to interview?
Yeah.
Is she here?
Thought we'd go through some of the others. Maybe she thought the 7:30 would go on.
And Don Terry's not here either. So we still have,
Okay.
he is?
Is Don Terry here?
No, he's not here yet.
No. Kristen Alexander,
Yes.
Okay.
applicant for the Conservation Commission. We have two alternate positions, one term ending June 30th, 2017, and one term ending June 30th, 2018. You'd introduce yourself and tell us why you'd like to be on an alternate member of the Conservation Commission.
Hello, I'm Kristen Alexander, and an alternate position on the Conservation Commission for me would be wonderful because it would give me an opportunity to see how the process works without, because I don't have experience being on any boards here. I'm a resident of Falmouth. I came here when I was a child. I grew up summers here and became a permanent resident in 1980. I have a vivid recall of how the town and the environment used to look and what I used to do as a child. And it's, much of it has gone away. So I consider myself a bit of an environmentalist and a self-taught botanist. I'm also a documentary filmmaker. I do films on the environment. So I would like to try and help move the town towards a environmentally helpful way to work with homeowners, to educate them. When I came into one of the board meetings, the chairman had suggested to me that I should come be an alternate member, and so I gave it some thought, and I said, yes, I'd like to do that, so that's why I'm here.
Questions on the board? Sam?
Yeah, have you attended any of the Conservation Commission hearings? Have you watched them on,
Yes, I
Video.
have both.
okay.
Yes.
So what would be the basis you would use for deciding whether to vote for or against a project application?
Well, as the commissioner had said to me, the commission is not to stop homeowners from having their homes and doing what they want to do, but it's more to make sure that the environment isn't harmed with what is being done with homes. So, that would be the basis, is making sure that the environment is not harmed, that the natural habitat maintains.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let us consider the Conservation Commission at this point. We had one applicant, we have two alternate position vacancies. What's the pleasure of the board? I'd like to handle this one.
Well,
Mr. Patterson?
yeah. Well, I would move to nominate, or to place Kristen Alexander in the position that will end on June 30th of 2017,
The alternate position.
the alternate position, yeah.
I could second that.
So we have a motion and a second to appoint Kristen Alexander to the Conservation Commission as an alternate for term ending June 30th, 2017.
Give a comment. Kristen, I think you're going to find that you're not given a lot of leeway to decide whether the project is going to benefit the environment or not based on just, your assessment of that. You pretty much have to rule on the regulations that apply for any given project and make sure that they fall within those regulations. So I think serving as an alternate for a few years will give you an opportunity to see the limitations that the commissioners actually have. And I have great respect for them. I'm a liaison to that commission, and they do a fabulous job. And your comment about the fact that sometimes they're actually helping the applicant to abide by those regulations, but you're going to find that your judgment is limited to decide whether the regulations are going to be met or not.
Okay, all those in favor of the appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay. William Scribner. Mr. Scribner? Great. We've already heard from Mr. Alfonso is interested in the Recreation Department, Recreation Committee. If you could just tell us your name and why you're interested in being on the Recreation Committee.
My name is Bill Scribner. I live in East Falmouth. I'm a single father of 5. I'm an empty nester, and I've always had an interest in what goes on in the town with the sports and the recreational activities. I was involved in Pop Warner football for close to 20 years as both a coach and a board member, president. I was president for 8 years. I coached Falmouth Little League, Falmouth Babe Ruth, Falmouth Senior Babe Ruth. I've taken tournament teams of 12-year-olds to Cooperstown, New York for tournaments. I coached Falmouth Youth Hockey for 21 years. I put 5 kids through the Falmouth school system and all the hockey, football, baseball, and whatever other sports they decided to try. And I dealt with the rec department quite a bit with those sports, especially when I was president of Pop Warner, with the fields and the usage. And I'm also still involved with the high school. I film all the football games. I've been filming the games since 2002. So I know the kids. I know a lot of the kids that have come up through the sports, a lot of the kids that are in high school now, a lot of kids that I coached when they were younger are getting married and having kids now, so they've been around for a long time. And I'd like to get more involved in what happens in the rec, and I don't really exactly know what the role is as a rec committee member, but I've been to rec meetings as, working with these other youth programs, so I have seen, dealings with them. I've always had success with them, and I have a good relationship with them, so I wanted to be more involved.
Do you know Mr. Alfonso? Here's the other applicant. Any other questions? Mr. Patterson?
I'm going to ask the same question I asked Mr. Alfonso. What do you see as the role of the coach for these various youth teams and activities?
Jeez. Trying to make sure that they have the most positive experience in order to get them to return and play another year. Make sure that their experience is positive, make sure it's safe, make sure there's more people involved, make sure the parents are aware of everything that goes on within that program. Parent meetings are a big thing for me. We always had parent meetings, make sure everybody was involved. It was transparency within each program. And as a coach, you want to give the kids the best opportunity they have. No matter what their ability level is, you want to make sure that you have produced a product for the next level, for the next coach, make the next coach's job easier, and make sure that the player has the best chance to move on and move further and continue as far as he wants to go. My oldest son went on to play college football. And I think the sports that the kids are involved in carry them through the rest of their life.
Could I just ask a question? There's 2 vacancies, as I see. Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd like to, you sort of indicated in your answer to my question that you see it as helping children advance up to become more and more competitive in any particular sport. Are there other benefits that children get from these recreation programs?
Absolutely.
That a coach might be able to help out with?
Yeah, they learn, how to work together with other teammates. Like I said, but based on abilities, you want to try to make sure that less experienced kids have a positive experience and make sure that they continue playing, and the more experienced kids can help and become better teammates and work together with the wide range of abilities.
Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
we've had 2 applicants, and we have 2 vacancies, terms ending June 30th, 2018.
I'm going to move for appointment of William Scribner and Philip Afonso to the Recreation Committee for terms ending June 30, 2018. And I think those are very good candidates.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Thank you.
Thank
Congratulations.
you, gentlemen.
All right. Can we go back to the Conservation Commission for a minute?
Sure.
This shows that there are 2 positions open,
Yes.
and we have 2 alternates already. Is that the way you?
No, differently.
Yeah.
But Betsy got moved up. This
Yeah,
is
you
no-
appointed her.
We moved up to Betsy.
Moved her up
Yeah, that's
already.
not updated.
Right.
Betsy is no longer an alternate member. She's a full-time member now.
And what about Jamie Matthews?
Jamie-
I don't mean him. Yeah,
Jamie's a full-time member now.
and he's a
they-
full-time, so they're both full-time.
Right.
So
Only
these are
one.
alternate positions.
That were
Right.
appointed.
That's the
Yep.
reason we have the alternate positions, because we both.
That's just not
alternates.
updated.
Just wanted to verify.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Courtney Burden.
Yeah.
Right, yep, I just wanted to make sure.
Jessica Lambert? Okay. Or Donald Terry?
I guess
All right.
that's it.
It's time for us to move on.
Yep.
And make decisions on these appointments. So for the Water Quality Management Committee, we have 1 vacancy, term ending June 30th, 2017. We had 2 applicants, Matthew Charette and Jessica Lambert. Yep.
I would like to move that we appoint Matthew Charette to a term ending June 30th of 2017.
Okay. It's appointment to the Water Quality Management Committee.
Yep.
We have motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward.
Appreciate it.
All right, Community Preservation Committee, we had 1 vacancy, term ending June 30th, 2017. We have had 2 applicants and we had 1 interview.
I'm going to move for appointment of, wait a minute, I think it might be, Kate Jackson is, great, for the term ending June 30, 2017.
Second.
Motion and a second to appoint Kate Jackson to the Community Preservation Committee, term ending June 30th, 2017. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? None, the ayes have it. If anyone knows Donald Terry, if you could encourage him to reapply once Mr. Buckland's resignation is official.
Yes.
I think that would be a great use of his interest.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Next is the presentation of petition articles. This is for the annual town meeting. First is Article 19. This is from Mr. Finneran.
Good evening. Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. Thank you very much. This is basically the same article I put in last year, which came fairly close to passing, and I'm putting it in for basically the same reasons. It's about a year and a half ago at town meeting, we were asked to appropriate sums of money for jobs done on town facilities, and they weren't properly estimated. We appropriated $65,000 to paint Town Hall, and the bill actually came in at $35,000. Generally, 10% leeway is like an industry standard. Obviously, there weren't a proper amount of estimates. We were asked to appropriate $60,000 to paint the fire station, which we did, and we were questioned. There were numerous questions about it, some from professional painters. I painted myself for a long time. And that one actually came in at $30,000. So the estimate was twice the actual cost of the job. Then we were asked to appropriate $125,000 for the police station roof. And when asked about an estimate for that, we were told at town meeting that they took an old estimate for the Gus Canty roof for $75,000, and somehow they came up with $125,000 for the police station. It obviously wasn't researched enough. I mean, there weren't the proper amount of estimates done. And it's been a year and a half, and the police station roof, as I just spoke with Chief Dunn, it does leak still. I've been up on the roof. The original leak was where they moved the HVAC unit and poked a hole through the rubber roof. They patched that with some bed liner or the equivalent. As far as that's concerned, I spoke to the DPW regarding that. And there's a service that anybody who does roofs or in construction knows about. You can use it through any distributor. It's called Eagle View, where they take a satellite and they measure the roof up. I mean, they can tell you to the quarter of a square and a half a stick of drip edge exactly what you're going to need for materials. They didn't even know that existed. Now, when I did present this article last year at town meeting, Joe Netto, who has numerous experience in purchasing, said that also it needed to have an element in it where it was spec'd out properly. If he thinks so, I mean, he could amend this on town meeting floor, but why I didn't put that in was the Lawrence School windows. We were told that they needed to be impact resistant. Had we spec'd them out as hurricane windows, it would have been a much higher price, and those simply weren't necessary. Sometimes no one knows more about an issue or a product than the salesmen themselves. And when they know they're competing with two other people, I mean, generally you get a fairly legitimate estimate. And I mean, in the end, we only paid the $35,000 and the $30,000 for the paint jobs that I noted. But that ties up money. It ties up funding. I mean, we're working under Proposition 2.5. I mean, just those two things, that's another $65,000 that we appropriated and budgeted under the Proposition 2.5 that we might have been able to use that money somewhere else. And I mean, you all know how much we'll wrestle over nickels at town meeting and spend hours on it. And I think for the sake of accuracy, this should be done. I mean, and I was going to include in this, and I've mentioned it numerous times over the years at town meeting, we're a $120 million corporation, above and beyond this step, which is just natural, it's standard. I mean, we really need a town-wide purchasing agent, and we need a town-wide invoice system. If you ask anyone that's in the corporate world, as they grow and they switch to that, I mean, they see savings of 20% isn't unusual at all. And you know, the same thing, if you had purchasing orders and somebody overlooking all this stuff, 50% of the theft would end immediately because someone knows that someone's looking over their shoulder. I mean, again, this would be standard in any $120 million corporation. It just, business wouldn't be done without it. What else we got here? Money. I mean, and that's basically it. I mean, it's a standard thing, and I don't see why we aren't doing it already. I mean, if you want to come into town meeting and ask us for money, I mean, you should have accurate figures, not ones that you're estimating on your own. And then, just to finish, Brent Putnam, the selectman who was here earlier, was always famous saying, "Are we buying a Cadillac when a Chevy would do?" Well, I'd like to amend that a little bit and say, are we paying Cadillac prices for a Chevy? I mean, if we routinely got, you know, 3 legitimate estimates from legitimate vendors, we'd certainly have a better handle on these things, and we'd be able to apportion our money more wisely. And that's basically it.
Thank you. All right, the next petition article is Article 20. Mr. Finneran?
Okay. This one's about establishing a fee structure for commercial users at the compost facility. Right now, there is no fee structure. There's no charge. And that place is used by all the landscapers from all the surrounding towns because we don't charge. Now, I have a customer in New Seabury I do all kinds of things for, and I had someone up there cleaning their yard for a party. With the leaves. This was, right at the end of the summer, but there was a lot of leaves. Anyway, to go to the Mashpee facility, it's $25 for just a pickup truck load of leaves. Again, ours is free. I'm not proposing that we charge citizens of Falmouth anything. I think it's just natural. People are taking advantage of us. I think this also demonstrates the solid waste manager's position that we voted and funded several years ago, and it still hasn't been filled. I would say that if we should hire that manager, we should have hired him years ago. And it could be a working manager. They could fill in at the dump, somebody from the dump, we could do this with that person, we could do this with, that would provide the extra person. I would propose that we open this facility only on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And that way it would be easy enough to man that position just with a solid waste manager. And kind of relative to that, I don't know if this is actually factual, but we got a $1,500 donation from Republic, the trash hauler. My understanding was that Mr. Jack is so busy with the filtration projects and the sewer projects that he didn't get the contract out on time, so we had to pay a $50,000 penalty. I don't know if that's accurate. I haven't had time to research it. I only heard it a few days ago. But again, hiring the solid waste manager would have saved that. It'll allow us to make some money at this facility. And like I said, all the people from surrounding towns are taking advantage of us at this moment. And without someone watching that facility as well, there's a lot of dumping going on there. There's a lot of garbage that's going in there, and there's a lot of brush that gets into it, and it makes for a substandard product. We could improve what comes out of there and make money at the same time. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. But I'm doing this article with John Snyder. He's on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee with me. We're not doing this through the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I mean, sometimes the wheels there move a little bit slow. But we're going to survey the place and find out who's coming in, how much they, we'll go to other towns, find out how much they are actually charging, and we'll have a legitimate proposal to use that facility in a better fashion and make the town some money and still serve the people in town, and we'll serve the people from out of town too. I mean, maybe we should charge less. I don't know, but as it is now, it really could be run better. And again, I mean, all of this is hitched to the fact that we don't have a solid waste manager, and there's just not enough time in the day. And I mean, even Peter McConerty with his duties now, he doesn't have enough time to dedicate to the waste management facility and this composting facility. And that's it. I'll have a better presentation on both of these at town meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Article 21, Peter Wadsdorf.
Mr. Chairman, can I clarify an item? I did want to confirm, as the board's fully aware, the Deputy Public Works Director position includes a responsibility for managing solid waste, and that's been stated clearly at the time that this board affirmed the appointment to that position, and that was the way it was presented at town meeting as well. Those are within the duties of that deputy position, and so I just wanted to clarify that. And also to, if I may, to indicate the items referred to earlier as coming from being involved with Prop 2.5 were paid for by free cash as allocated and approved by a town meeting and the Finance Committee. And we do have a Chief Procurement Officer that I've assigned, and that's our Finance Director. Jennifer Petit handles those duties as assigned, and we follow routinely all the laws of the Commonwealth as it relates to procurement and I do want to underscore that to the board as well. Thank you.
Article 21, Peter Wasdorp.
I'm speaking on behalf of Peter Wasdorp. My name is Roman Long. I've lived in Falmouth for a little over 20 years. Thank you for hearing us out on Article 21 tonight. So I've been working on...
Could you say your name again?
Yeah, Roman Long. So myself, as well as a group of local activists, have been working on the issue of divestment for the past few months, and it's been something, it's been a tool that's been used by many different groups to support, or rather, not support, certain things like the apartheid in South Africa, as an example. So through the local Cape and Islands team of 350 Massachusetts and myself, we're bringing divestment in front of you today. So divestment, in short, is a non-binding resolution that would pressure the state to pull funds out of their pensions, so stocks out of fossil fuel companies, and reinvest them in a socially responsible way. That at least appears to be what Senator Ben Downing is going for, and into companies such as renewable companies, solar, hydro, etc. So divestment has the support of many different organizations throughout the state, such as the Boston Teachers Union, the Massachusetts Union for Human Service Workers and Educators, Service Employees International Union 888, Massachusetts Nurses Association, a collective of Massachusetts public school teachers, various local businesses and nonprofits. Currently, 14 towns and cities have already divested in a similar manner that we're hoping that the town of Falmouth will, including Provincetown and Truro on Cape Cod. So I think everyone here in this room knows and understands that today is a vastly different world than what we were looking at, say, 50, 100 years ago. We have iPhones, we can pull out our phones, and in the flick of a few more or less like strokes, we can research the latest news on climate change, as an example. So there's a lot of problems that we face, such as rising sea levels, ocean acidification, more intense weather patterns, so that means more Hurricane Katrinas and super typhoon Haiyan. That means that we're experiencing the greatest loss of biodiversity since the latest past ice age, deforestation. We've heard it all before. My time here isn't to bring you down that track, but it's to provide a glimmer of hope. And I believe that that glimmer of hope is divestment. It's a proven strategy to be able to mitigate these issues, to levy pressure on organizations that are currently not planning, at least from our projections of their business plans, for example, to look into things like renewable companies, invest in certain things like energy efficiency. So the state of Massachusetts has committed itself in the Global Warming Solutions Act to reduce greenhouse gases by 80% by 2050, according to 1990 levels. To remain consistent with this call, we, as the 350 Massachusetts, the local Cape and Islands team, we urge the Board of Selectmen and Selectwomen to pass Article 21 on town meeting warrant. So this is not just a moral call. It makes really strong financial sense. Ben Downing, he's very clear in his language what the ramifications are if there's some sort of a decrease in the pension. So he says if it falls below 99.5% in the 5-year schedule of divesting from fossil fuel companies, so it's on a 20% per year basis until we get to 100%, that we reinvest in fossil fuel companies. So very much minimizing the risk that we can face. To give words to some of the more disadvantaged groups out there, Yeb Sanyo, the head of the Philippines government's delegation to the UN climate talks, he was quoted by The Guardian, as well as in the full-length feature documentary Disruption. which came out in 2014, I believe, as saying, and this was commenting on the effects of Super Typhoon Haiyan that has ravaged the Philippines and many other South Pacific nations. He says, to anyone outside who continues to deny, ignore the reality that is climate change, I dare them to get off their ivory towers and away from the comfort of their armchairs. I dare them to go to the islands of the Pacific. My challenge is kind of snarky and I guess more simple for anyone to do, but and for any climate change deniers to breathe deeply the exhaust fumes of a diesel vehicle for 10 minutes. By no means do I wish to actually see anyone do this, because this is very harmful action. But the point that I'm trying to make is climate change is real, and I believe that there's something that we can do about it in the immediate future. So in order to ensure an habitable world for ourselves and our future generations, we urge the Board of Selectmen and Selectwomen to pass on the local level Article 21, divestment issue, to levy pressure on the state. Currently, I don't believe Ben Downing's bill has a name at the moment. I believe it was previously S1551, but you can probably find it. Ben Downing divestment bill. And my hope is that this will reckon in a new era of investments in companies like renewable energies, energy efficiency, and whatnot, and we'll be able to develop self-reliance, and we'll be able to ensure a livelihood for our children, our children's children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Article 22.
I have a slide. Oh, I'm sorry, 22.
Article 22, Peter Wasdorf.
Good evening, Peter Wasdorf, Precinct 1. Article 22 would call for a mandatory recount of any standing town meeting vote where there was a yea and nay difference of 5 votes or less. And that recount would have to be done by 2 tellers per division, 2 counters per division, rather than the one we have now, which is a common practice. The idea for the article arose after discussing some votes which occurred in the 2014 fall town meeting having to do with the rezoning of the Cavosa property. They were Articles 9 and 10. Because they were rezoning articles, they had to be passed by a 2/3 majority. Article 9 passed by 1 vote. Article 10 passed by 4/10 of a vote. I stood up when that vote was announced and asked for a recount, and that recount was denied. I think when you watch the tellers perform their job, which they haven't really done for years, especially in the 2nd division, Mr. Dufresne, you're looking down rows of 15 to 20 seat of town meeting members, some of whom are standing up late, some of whom are sitting down early, a lot of whom are moving around. I don't think it's unusual to think that out of 200 votes, 270 potential votes, if everybody showed up at town meeting, that you could be off by 1 or 2 votes. And I think on important issues in town meeting, we all deserve to know that the vote is as accurate as possible. Town meeting time, which is the handbook of New England town meetings, calls for using 2 tellers per division regularly. And that would eliminate any need for a recount, I think, before it could even come up. And we know in the future electronic voting is coming. Some towns on the tape are using it. It not only would provide an accurate vote, it would also produce a record of how each of our town meetings vote, members vote, which is something which would, I think, help all of us in the future decide to whom we want to give our votes. David Vieira, the town moderator, has very nicely reached out to me. He is calling a meeting of the Town Meeting Procedures Committee on Tuesday, October 27th at 6 p.m., which is before the orientation for new town meeting members. I think we both hope that we can work out a procedure which might deal with this problem. And so I would ask you to withhold any recommendations until we hear what comes out of that committee. And I'm hoping that we could find, the article is very simple, very amendable. I have no strong feelings about holding fast to a 5-count difference. That may be too high. And I think it's quite possible we could work out a permanent solution of 2 tellers per division, which would end the entire need for a recount. So I thank you for considering this.
Just to
Thank
let
you.
you know, the charter forces us to make recommendations on all petition articles. And if the article changes between now and then, but we really are required to have recommendations on all petition articles to be printed in the warrant. So we may not be able to abide by your request to postpone until it changes. But Article 23, Ms. Palmer?
Yes, thank you. I'm Leah Palmer from Precinct 8.
Thank you.
And I petitioned Article 23 for our friends, neighbors, and community members who are lawful permanent residents of Falmouth, which also means that they're green card holders. These individuals pay taxes locally, statewide, and federally. They own homes, they have children in our schools, and are active in our communities, but cannot vote on local issues. I petitioned Article 23 to be a voice for our community members that currently don't have one. So what Article 23 is, it's for town meeting to authorize the selectmen. There's some changes that we need to make that just goes by what you guys are called. The selectmen to file legislation or to file with legislators, in the state of Massachusetts, to request a special act entitled an act authorizing local voting rights for legal permanent resident non-citizens residing in Falmouth, which are also green card holders. What Article 23 is it's the right to vote for lawful permanent residents, green card holders, and it's the right to vote in local elections and local ballots. What Article 23 is not, it's not the right to vote in state or federal elections. It's not for U.S. visa holders, people who aren't here permanently. And it's not the right to vote for undocumented immigrants. Why Article 23? Falmouth lawful permanent residents pay local taxes. They're taxed like U.S. citizens. They have children in our Falmouth public schools. They're active members of our community. And they have no say in how our local taxes are being used. No say in, for example, wastewater treatment facilities or school committee elections. The effects that Article 23 would have if it was passed is allowing permanent residents to vote in local elections and ballot questions. And this would further the integration and participation of permanent residents within our community. It would give Falmouth a diverse voice, and it adds to Falmouth's welcoming qualities. I'm going to turn this to my friend Angela Helping.
My name is Angela Helbling. I live in Precinct 1. I came to Falmouth nearly 5 years ago in a very cold January. I have 2 children that are presently in the public school system. My younger one is a 5th grader at Morse Pond School now, and my older one is an 8th grader at Lawrence School. We really love it in Falmouth. We love the community. A little bit over 3 years ago, we bought a little fixer-upper. It still needs a lot of fixing. And nearly 3 years ago, it'll be actually at the end of the month, we became green card holders. And I became very interested in Leah's campaign to be a member of the school committee. And I did my share of painting signs and putting it up on my lawn. But then in the end, I couldn't do the final thing. I couldn't give her a vote. And I felt a little bit powerless in that situation. I discussed with a lot of people, and for a little while, I actually believed I did have local voting rights, and I felt really elated and fantastic about that. But it turned out that that was not true. And I do think that the passing of Article 23 would give me and all the other permanent residents here in Falmouth a voice, and to integrate us further into this very welcoming town. Thank you.
There are a couple of changes for the text in there that I will send before the recommendation, or when you put the recommendation. Thank you.
Sure.
Leah, just a question or two. Is there any other community that's already doing this?
Yes.
actually. Amherst, Massachusetts, it has passed in town meeting in Amherst, and there twice it's passed in town meeting. So it is just waiting at the state level right now to have the change in the state law. Oh, Cambridge, Newton, Brookline.
No, that's all
That's it.
Massachusetts. And then
And New York City is in the process right now. They actually used to have a law that allowed permanent residents, green card holders, to be able to vote for school board elections, but that changed when their school board changed in 2003. Maryland, there are 5 towns in Maryland that allow permanent, lawful permanent residents, green card holders to vote.
Any idea what the numbers in Falmouth would be?
So that is a tricky question. When we went to do the research, well, we did some research online and we were able to get some Barnstable numbers, but we were unable to get Falmouth numbers. And the reason being, the reason that we think, is that when you do the census, so when you're at your home and you get a census and you're checking off who's in your house, you only receive that census if there is a voting member in the family. And because many of our green card holders, they're the 2 adults in the household are not voting.
Just
We don't
one
have
more
those numbers.
question.
Yes.
Did you consider, or what would be your view in including second homeowners?
Yeah, we did not consider that. We considered permanent.
You can only vote in one place, though. I mean, if you're a second homeowner, you can just register here. You declare it yourself. You can't be registered in 2 different places at once.
So maybe it's prohibited.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I
That-
guess
that
if
could be
they're
an answer.
a green card holder and, I don't know how many people that would pertain to who would have a second home, but.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Well, I was going to say, you would have to declare it as your permanent
Right.
residence.
right.
Right.
And then that's where you would live most of the year. So having a second home.
Yeah,
wouldn't-
so I guess
it
that's
would-
why it's out.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
Is there a requirement, of the other communities that have voted on it, do they require that someone who has a green card live here for so many years before they'd be eligible to vote?
I have not read about that
I don't think
requirement.
so because it already takes quite a long time to, sorry. It already takes quite a long time to actually become
To
a
get a
green card
green card.
holder. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, you have to come on an entry visa, and then you can only start the paperwork after a certain amount of time, and then it takes usually about a year for it. So by the time you receive your green card, you have been living there for a while.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Article 24, Howard Grosser.
Good evening. I'm Howard Grosser. I live in Precinct 2. I'm also president of the Falmouth Heights Mara Vista Neighborhood Association. Article 24 was drafted for town meeting's consideration on behalf of 700-plus property owners in the Little Pond Sewer Service area who will be required to install grinder pumps. 167 of those property owners are members of the FHMNA. I know that the T-Ticket Civic Association also has a significant number of members in their neighborhood association to represent as well. For a complete disclosure, I do own a property in the Little Pond Sewer Service area. My property will connect into the system by gravity. I appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. The first sentence of Article 24 calls for a town meeting vote to authorize this board to declare as policy that these 700-plus properties in the Little Pond Sewer Service area that the grinder pumps are town property, effectively a part of the infrastructure, and will be maintained, repaired, and/or replaced by the town. The second sentence of the article authorizes this board to determine the means by which this can be accomplished and the length of the term over which this would be accomplished. As important as what the article does say is what it intentionally does not say. It does not say anything about or propose the means by which this will be accomplished. It also does not say anything about or propose the length of term over which this would be accomplished. If the article is adopted by town meeting, I expect those discussions would take place in this very room, and I look forward to participating. The article is strictly about policy, not means and methods. I suggest there are many compelling reasons for the town to take the responsibility for the grinder pumps within the allotted time tonight. I'd like to outline just three. First, the 700 pumps are being used to move waste material from these 700 properties because, as we all know, it was decided to avoid the use of large lift stations for that same purpose. We were told that the lift station design would have required excavating and laying the main sewer pipes deeper in the street, which would have added significant cost to the project, that the lift stations in and of themselves were expensive, and locating them appropriately would have required more than one costly eminent domain land taking. The added infrastructure expense aside, had that design been implemented, the lift stations clearly would have been town maintained. So the design choice to eliminate a few big lift stations and substitute them with 700 mini lift stations has shifted the responsibility of the equipment maintenance from the town to 700, or half of the property owners in the Little Pond Sewer Service area. I expect that that consequence was the unintended type, and I suggest it can be corrected, and it should be corrected, and supporting this article is a preliminary step in correcting it. Second, there has been a consensus for equalizing the costs associated with connecting to the sewer system between the 700 property owners in the gravity system area and the 700 property owners in the low pressure system areas. Well, actually, it's more than just a consensus. This very board was the petitioning body for Articles 1 and 2, which passed at last November's special town meeting. Your Article 1 called for, quote, reimbursing certain households for the cost of acquiring and installing grinder pumps. To date, town has committed to the acquiring part of that article regarding the grinder pumps. The warrant article before you now is asking for a means and methods policy commitment on the installing part of last November's Article 1. Also, at last November's town special town meeting, you were authorized by Article 2 to, again, quote, assess betterments in such a manner that the households required to install low-pressure grinder pumps will not bear a disproportionately higher share of the total project cost. So, as we know, you've established the betterment fee itself to be the same for both types of hookups. Another way you've equalized the cost between the gravity and the pump systems is your unanimous vote to make the consolidated permit fee the same for both systems. This article asks for a policy to extend that equal cost and fairness philosophy by making the ongoing costs between the two systems the same. I suggest that in order for the ongoing cost of a pump system to be close to the ongoing cost of a gravity system, the town needs to take on the maintenance responsibility of the pumps that now rests with the 700 property owners. Third, and last for now, until town meeting, and very much related to equitable treatment, it has been stated on numerous occasions that our property values will increase as a result of being connected to a sewer system versus having a septic system. And to whatever extent this is true for the gravity systems, right now it's less so for the property owners with the grinder pumps. Visualize two adjacent houses in the Little Pond Sewer Service area for sale. Identical in age, square footage, condition, everything exactly the same between the two except for the sewer connection. House A disposes of sewage and wastewater the same way that probably everyone in this room does right now. 24/7, without equipment, without electricity, without a second thought, by gravity. House B rids itself of sewage and wastewater when the grinder pump is working, and of course when the power's on. Gravity never needs repair, replacement, or maintenance. The mini lift station in House B, on the other hand, has ongoing maintenance requirements and pretty much a guarantee that that pump unit will need to be replaced on average every 12 years. So I suggest that a logical extension of your very own Article 2 from last November is an obligation to equalize the effect on property values associated with the two hookups. once the grinder pumps are designated to be an integral part of the sewer infrastructure and their proper operation is guaranteed by the town, I think we can agree that pump house B is definitely, hopefully equal in value to the gravity in house A. I suggest that it shouldn't be, but to the extent that your policy decision is influenced by cost, there's no question there are expenses involved with pump maintenance, repair, and replacement. The question is whether you believe those expenses should be borne by 700 individuals, or whether you believe, as a result of a system design choice that we all made, that relies on equipment and electricity instead of relying on gravity, if those expenses are the responsibility of the system designer, which is us, which is the town. So, anyway. Again, just in summary, the article before you tonight is consistent with your own articles, 1 and 2 from last November, an extension of those articles, and I'm here tonight to ask you to support Article 24 at this November's town meeting. So,
thank you very much.
thank you.
Next is from the special town meeting, Article 2, Rollins Mike and Richard Latimer. You would like to requesting permission to videotape?
No objection.
Just this public announcement that this will be videotaped by Mr. Carlton Foss. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Good evening. My name is Ron Zweig, and I live in Precinct 1. Thank you for the opportunity to present for your endorsement Article 2 on this fall's special town meeting warrant. The article reads as follows: to see if the town will vote to support the Board of Selectmen's efforts toward maximizing the benefits and thereby minimizing any financial burden to Falmouth citizens from operation of the town's municipal turbines at its wastewater treatment facility at 154 Blacksmith Shop Road, West Falmouth, Massachusetts. With only a 24-hour notice to draft and place this article on the warrant, 139 signatures were obtained in about 2 hours at only 3 locations in Falmouth. The purpose of the article before you is to seek our town's support to this board to maximize the benefits from operation of our municipal wind turbines, especially in reference to the May 21st, 2013 ballot question 2 vote by a supermajority of more than 2-to-1 margin overall not to finance turbine removal. That vote even included a 54% majority not to remove the turbines by neighbors to them in Precinct 6, where they are located. The removal of the turbines would have amounted to about $10 million, a loss of about $10 million for decommissioning, plus an additional $15 million for their offset of the purchase of electricity generated by them. Yes, a whopping $25 million cost to the taxpayers of Falmouth. We are now again faced with the threat of the same burden of that crippling figure. From a fiscal standpoint alone, without considering environmental benefits, not to retain and operate the turbines as planned will cause in real financial terms an enormous hardship for our townspeople and a certain reduction in services they deserve: school, public works, libraries, police, fire and rescue, public safety, etc. In fact, no plan has been put forward on how to finance such an irresponsible action by the proponents of turbine removal. We all also know issues have been raised via the courts and town boards by a handful of property owners. 8 of about 200 within 1/2 mile of the turbines are about 0.03% town-wide, mainly over procedural technicalities and other very questionable assertions over adverse impacts by the turbines. About 16 in total in that area have filed complaints with the town in the past, 8% of the 200 property owners, which amount to only about 0.06% of town-wide. I do not have time tonight to delve into the issues raised in the scientific peer-reviewed analyses to challenge the validity of those claims, especially as they relate to health and real estate values. On health, there is a consensus among experts that the perceived effects are specifically related to nocebo or psychogenic factors. And I am certain that most, if not all, of us in this community have compassion for the few with that inclination. On real estate values is a direct indicator of well-being. Home sales within the one half mile of the turbines are on par with sales across Falmouth and have overwhelmingly exceeded their assessed values since the turbines went up, with one sale 32% above that value in the turbine area. 32% above assessed value. I suggest a quantitative financial analysis of alternatives to resolve the issue be conducted. That analysis should be used to guide how to avoid the financial challenge to our townspeople. As one option, for example, Richard Latimer, co-sponsor of this article, has suggested that for those properties where adverse impacts have been claimed, they should be voluntarily sold to and bought by the town at fair market value. They could then be resold. If not offered voluntarily, the town could explore the possibility of acquiring them through eminent domain, if needed, also by purchasing them at fair market value and reselling them. As noted above, the real estate market in that area is robust. Other options, of course, could be considered, which should also be as revenue neutral as possible. What's most critical is not to throw away public funds and burden this town with debt in the short term or possibly even for a generation, most probably well beyond your service, with no benefit to taxpayers. Please keep in mind, the current sewer expansion and new water filtration plant have used all our available borrowing for years to come without a property tax increase to cover additional debt via Proposition 2.5 override. Through the wise leadership and votes by you and your predecessors, as well as several town meeting votes, many very significant steps toward transitioning to greater dependence on renewable energy and higher energy use efficiency have been made by this town, including the establishment of the wind turbines at the wastewater treatment plant. This transition must be accelerated, not reversed. The importance of which was recently affirmed by the Massachusetts Municipal Association and via new investments by state and local governments. I thereby seek your endorsement to recommend that the town vote this article as printed at next month's special town meeting. Thank you.
We'll now move on to vote our article recommendations for the annual town meeting, and that following that the special town meeting. And I remind the board that there are only certain articles that we do make recommendations on. We do not make recommendations on zoning articles. Those are done by the planning board. Finance articles are done by the finance committee. So the first article, which I think we do have recommendation, normally would be Article 4, which is the local comprehensive transportation element. The planning board is actually asking for indefinite postponement recommendation at this time. And since it is upon their request, certainly I would think that would be an appropriate recommendation to start off with for Article 4.
So moved.
Second.
The motion and a second for a recommendation of indefinite postponement, and with, I guess, the explanation being that the planning board would like to have further discussion on this before it's brought to planning, before to the town meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So with motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That's our recommendation, Article 4. Next is Article 12, and this is dealing with the authorizing the Board of Selectmen to execute on behalf of the town a lease for a term of years to be determined for the construction and production of ground-mounted solar voltaic cells on the former town landfill.
I think it's 11. Am I wrong?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not on the
11 is the
landfill.
zoning article.
No, it's not.
Article 11 is the proposed amendment of the bylaw allowing ground-mounted, and that's in light industrial zones.
On
So,
request of Megan Amser and others.
Which one?
But still, it's a
No,
zoning.
It's still
We're on
zoning,
Article
okay,
five,
that's why, I
right?
just want to be sure we
Right.
didn't,
So I
okay,
know it's a
sorry about
petitioner's
that.
article, but I think it gets recommended.
Okay,
Planning board.
The charter says that somebody has to make a recommendation on it, and being a
Doesn't
zoning
have to be
article.
us.
Right.
Which one are we on now?
we are on 12.
12.
12, what about 5?
That's Finance Committee.
Oh, sorry, missed it. Excuse me.
All right, let's go back. Article 12.
So Article 12 is, in the article is
So,
to authorize the Board of Selectmen to lease a portion of the land at the former landfill.
Motion to approve,
As printed?
or recommend, rather,
Recommend as printed?
Recommended as printed.
as printed.
Second? Right.
And just to be clear, the article is not actually creating a lease, it's just authorizing us to write the lease, to enter into a lease.
Right.
Okay, so we motion a second to recommend as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Article 13, this is to set up the, authorize the board to grant, transfer, and convey any easements necessary in the landfill, again, for the construction and production of the photovoltaic cell arrays on the landfill. It would be difficult for us to do the first and then not also do the second.
Right.
We could confuse people heavily by recommending one and not recommend the other, but I would suggest that we recommend this article as printed also.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second,
As printed.
as printed.
Mhm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Article 15. This has to do with amending the Chapter 140 of the Code of Falmouth License and Permitting to allow the exemption for home improvement and weatherization projects.
I move to recommend as printed.
Second.
And this allows homeowners who have not paid their property taxes in full to still obtain a building permit for weatherization projects. Otherwise, building permits are not allowed to be given out. Okay, your motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Article 16 has to do with amending Chapter 199 of the Code of Falmouth. Article 5, closure of streets, authorizing the Board of Selectmen to order the closure of any public way or part thereof of the town, except of course state highways, for closure of the streets for such a period of time as the board may determine.
I move this motion as printed.
Second.
Move we recommend this as printed.
Recommendation is as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Article 17 is to amend Chapter 203 of the Code of Falmouth, swimming pools, by adding a new section declaring where swimming pools can be drained. And all water drained from a swimming pool shall be contained on the lot on which the pool is located.
I move as printed, recommend as printed.
And this was initiated by the town manager and the assistance of the Director of Public Works upon our suggestion.
Second?
The motion is second, as printed? Yep.
Do you have a question about this?
Yep.
Is there an option for it to be pumped into a tank truck and hauled off-site? It doesn't really allow that. It says it has to be disposed of on-site. It seems to me that that's a potential way for a homeowner to drain their pool, is to have it pumped into a tanker truck and hauled away.
And where would that tank go?
I don't know the answer to that question, but they get the water from somewhere. When they bring it.
They get the water from our system.
Is that right? They take it from a hydrant somewhere?
But not from, they better not be taking it from a hydrant, but they may be very well taking it from, and they get charged for the water. You're filling up a pool with water out of your pipe, and you get charged the fee for it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, that's not 100% true, because I know there was a pool put in my neighborhood, and they haul water in from somewhere off. The contractor was from outside of Falmouth. So I don't think that's 100% true. So it's not to say this couldn't be amended later on with more information, and I certainly don't claim to know it all. It just occurred to me that there might be instances in which somebody could have their pool pumped out into a hauling truck and hauled off-site, and I don't know where it would go.
Well, then they could pay a violation of $300.
Okay.
I mean, my concern about having trucks pump the trucks get pumped in, where do those trucks then go?
Agreed.
Is no longer to say the homeowner is going to be following it, and the truck guy is going to be dumping it, I'm not sure exactly where. I would have that concern and say, well, if the homeowner wants to do it by paying a violation, then it's a little bit of a workaround, but.
From my perspective, there are questions relative to this article that bother me, in that, those questions all need to be addressed. Are there controls that should be applied to this kind of situation? If somebody pumps their pool out on their own home site, that's still going to go into the aquifer and potentially, maybe into nearby water, natural resources. So I'm bothered, and especially if somebody chlorinates their pool highly. You're putting chlorinated water into the groundwater, not just simply pure water or rainwater.
Ms. Moffitt?
What brought this discussion, who brought this up? Because I'm thinking about homes with pools, and I don't know that, at the end of the season, that I see a lot of water in the streets, or I would understand if you emptied your pool into your neighbor's yard, and then it creates a problem there. But I think about how did they get the water into the pool, and if it was in a truck, then maybe it needs to be removed by a truck. But I do say it shouldn't cause any harm to any other property when you want to drain your pool. You're responsible for that.
I also don't want it going to the wastewater treatment plant. And if it goes into the sewer system or the drain system on the road.
Yeah, if I might just clarify, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I had asked for this to be considered, and it was drafted by Town Council Frank Duffy. On 2 occasions last fall, we had a timeshare association flood major sections of Surf Drive, make it impassable. We had police out there, we had public works out there, we incurred overtime expenses, and we did not have an enforcement mechanism. And unfortunately, we had 2 uncooperative properties. In both cases, we were fortunate, in my judgment, we did not suffer an incredible accident. They attempted to do it as darkness was falling, and caused a we were just very fortunate. Any motorist that would have stumbled into that, we quickly cordoned it off, and again incurred taxpayer expenses to prevent this kind of irresponsibility. And I suspect it's not an isolated incident. So that is what this is all about, and it's about protecting life and limb on public roadways and related areas, and having property owners do the responsible thing, which in some cases does not happen, unfortunately.
Okay.
We'll have more information on that at town meeting, including some photographs.
Okay.
Would you like to add the amendment on the town meeting floor, say, shall be contained on a lot in which the pool is located or carried away by truck?
Well, I think that if there was going to be an amendment, I would want to be more informed about what it would be. So I'm perfectly comfortable for recommending it as printed at this stage.
Okay. I think we had a motion and a second to vote recommended as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, Article 19, this is the petitioner's article. Requesting for 3 estimates on any project $5,000 or over. This is for all town purchases over $5,000.
Well, what I would suggest is that we have a procurement law in the state that governs many of the issues, I think, that Mr. Finneran raised. And I think that we should have that information available at town meeting on the procurement law, because a lot of people really don't know that much about it. But it covers pretty much, I think, a lot of what Mark had to say, I believe.
Correct.
I think the one difference between the Procurement Act and what Mr. Finneran is talking about is the budget presentations are not procurements. They are merely budget questions that are coming up where we're not, I don't think we often are getting 3 estimates or doing the procurement because we're just coming up with a budget. When we actually spend the money, if it's out between $10,000 and $35,000, we have to follow the certain procedures. If it's over $35,000, we have to follow other procedures. And so it isn't even coming to the actual purchasing, it's only to the development of the budget.
Right, so it doesn't really apply under a town meeting vote in that sense, because what you may or may not see is a number, but that number is not a final number, it's subject to procurement, and it's normally less than what is there.
Right, but his article is asking for 3 estimates on all town purchases over $3,000. And we already do way more than that on actual purchases. And
Well, our procurement expert is at the end of the table, so. I mean, and we have a procurement officer, which is the finance
Absolutely.
director.
Right.
And she knows all procurement laws. I know Heather is certified procurement. Weren't you from a while back? But nevertheless, you keep up with it. So I think we have people in positions in the town who are very, very familiar, cognizant of the procurement law, and know what can be done and what can't be done, and how it should be done. So I don't think we have a concern that when we see something come before town meeting, that it hasn't been vetted by people who understand the procurement law. I mean, it's not the final number, but it's the best number that you can come up with, because it can't be more than that. And normally it can't be more than that. So it's always less than what the number is my understanding.
Mr. Pedersen?
I recall the discussion on this very same article at town meeting the last time, and I thought town meeting had a pretty reasoned discussion about this and decided that it wasn't appropriate. And I don't see why we're revisiting this, because I think people do the best they can, and they're going to be conservative because they don't want to have bids come in over what was budgeted. And this was testimony by members of the town, or town meeting members that were in the commercial world, not just in the municipal world, if you will. So I thought the reasoning was quite sound, and I see no reason why we should recommend this when last year it was defeated. So I would move indefinite postponement.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now the recommendation will be indefinite postponement. You do have in front of you a possible explanation with the background. Do you feel comfortable with me working with the town manager to work off of that background to create that?
Where are we now? What?
On the same article.
Oh, we're on the same article.
Right, but do you have the?
No, I don't have it.
Yeah,
I don't have any.
Later in your packet is some explanations.
Right.
Okay.
I thought it was quite sound, and I trust that you can come up with an explanation that town meeting members can read and reconsider if they choose to support a positive motion that might be made on the floor.
Okay. Right. Article 20, this is the request of petition article requesting that their fees be set for the compost facility. Adopting a fee structure of the compost facility for commercial users.
I guess the question is, why don't we have a fee for the compost facility? Sarah?
I don't know the answer to that question. There's not been a fee associated with either the drop-off or the ability to use composting material. That's been a service that the town provides. Certainly something that the board could ask to be explored, but my comment really was that this would be an advisory to the Board of Selectmen, because the Board of Selectmen establishes fees. So you could do a couple of things. You could refer it back to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee for them to take a look at it, or ask the Director of Solid Waste, Assistant Public Works Superintendent, to take a look.
One of the reasons we don't have a fee is there is no one manning the compost
Right.
facility.
Yeah.
It is unmanned. We have someone who comes and does moving of the, the number of times I've been, there used to be a policy stated that you could only take so much. And it was certainly way below what a commercial user would be taking. The understanding is you could take 5 or 6 trash can fulls if you wanted to. And the number of times a commercial user would have to come to be able to get enough to actually be useful would be very tedious for them to come back that many times.
It might be helpful if we could provide some guidance to town meeting. I mean, I realize it's a petition article, and that's probably not, I'm just thinking, let's hear.
I think
Yeah,
that
that's
since we
process
have,
established.
Mr. McConaty taking this over, that, as Heather suggested, that certainly would, I think it's an idea that we should look at. But I think I'd want the person that we've appointed in the job to run that facility to make a recommendation to us.
The technicality with the deal is technically we'd be selling town property to people. And by the Uniform Procurement Act, we can't really do that without going through a very lengthy process. I know it seems like a silly technicality, but once it comes to the town property and is left there, it is now ours, and to be able to sell it to somebody else gets very, very complicated.
That's not what it intended.
Whoops, he can't talk out.
For the drop off.
He cannot talk out.
Yeah.
I still think that could be looked at by the person in charge with that consideration.
Be happy
Maybe
to
I
do that.
misunderstand the
Yeah.
fee structure. I didn't, my thought was it was for use of the compost, not for a drop-off of the materials. But, Ms. Moffett, did you?
No.
No? Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, my observations of the operation of the compost facilities are the same as yours. And most of the time that I've been there dropping off leaves, there actually has been somebody there with a front-end loader that was moving the leaves back so that people could continue to drop them off at ground level instead of having to throw them up high onto a pile. So there is some sort of oversight in the sense of managing abuse of drop-off. My question would be, how much would it cost us to have somebody there to administer the fees? And then there's the whole question of enforcement, the authority, their ability to enforce it. I would much rather see, someone like Peter McConaty take a look at this based on the suggestion and come back with a proposal that's well thought out in terms of how it could actually be managed and do it cost effectively.
I also feel that the more often we can encourage people to use it and keep it as easy and simple and open as possible is a good thing, because they're going to get rid of the leaves someplace.
That's right.
And this is where I want them to go. I don't want them going the side of the road. I don't want them going to the dump. This is the right place for them. And if we make it hard, it's just like recycling. The harder we make it, the less they do.
Yeah, if I could just add on to that, I know I have seen people with trailers and pickup trucks literally going down the road as fast as they could with leaves blowing out all over the place on everybody's yard. So I quite agree with you. I think it's a valuable service and one we should continue to support and not create hurdles.
Does the board want to consider a recommendation, a positive recommendation to adopt to look into the use of the compost facility, as opposed to a fee structure, but
I would be inclined to look for a recommendation from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and then from the DPW.
So I guess since the petitions article, we can't really amend it, but,
Yeah.
so I guess our only option is to either accept this recommendation, or this wording as either positive recommendation or indefinite postponement. But
I think I'm going to move for indefinite postponement with the thought that certainly the issue has been highlighted and I think should be looked at.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second for the discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. The indefinite postponement with that explanation. Article 21 is the petition article asking for the divestment, asking us to, the Board of Selectmen, asking the town to approve a non-binding resolution being sent to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and to the representatives of the Commonwealth, looking for a divestiture from fossil fuel investments. Ms. Moffett?
I don't see anything negative about that at all. I mean, it is simply a matter that Falmouth is on the record of opposing investments in fossil fuel industry. And I think it was explained in a very positive way, and I would be very much in favor of Falmouth being one of the towns that would agree with it.
And move it as printed.
Move it as printed.
Second.
Discussion? I just wanted to, I wasn't going to say anything about this, but, and I'm for it. I really do support it. But I do know that in the retirement system, and in the state, what do I say, the treasurer, and the investment office, when the state invests money, they invest in packages, that are provided to them by investors. And to take a piece out of an investment package is very costly, because you have to say to the investor, I can't accept this whole package because I want this particular line removed, which has to do with what we're talking about. And that's why nothing has ever happened. And I know this because I'm on the Barnstable County Retirement Board, and we meet with the
Investment advisor.
Yeah, well, we meet with the advisory committee, but also we meet with PARAC and PRIM. And PRIM actually is the group that invests. And so anyway, so that's really the issue, is that it is so expensive for investors to take these out of all the different packages. But there's nothing to say that, why don't they give us packages that don't include these?
Right.
On the other hand, so
Well,
I think we should
that's the
support
point.
it for that reason.
I think that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Just give us a package that doesn't have it.
That's
And-
right.
Right.
So is that your second?
That's my second, yeah.
I do have concerns as to how far articles like this go on our town meeting. I think that I worry that if we continue to have more and more articles like this that really are not town issues, that we're going to have 4 or 5 or 8 of them that end up having discussion that goes beyond what the scope of town meeting is all about. Having said that, I will vote to support the recommendation, and I'll vote for it on town meeting floor, but I do have those concerns. Sam?
Yeah, I would just question about whether it's not having an impact on this town, because I think you really have to think in terms of multi-generational impacts. And, I really respect young Mr. Roman Long for coming and speaking to us, because his generation is going to feel the impact a lot more than I am. I'm going to be long gone. But we need to be thinking in terms of future citizens of this community, and I think it is germane to this community, and we're a coastal community. So sea level rise is a reality. So I think it is germane. I beg to differ a little bit with you.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. The ayes have it. Article 22 is the petitioner's article approving the resolution regarding mandatory recounts of town meeting votes.
I think he had a good point. I think that I remember, I've just never heard of a fraction of one. It was a surprise to me, but I assumed that it was the direction at that vote. So I do think that it should be clearer than just a fraction of one.
I love the fact that a vote was decided that way. It was a one vote because it meant your vote counted. And I love the fact that in our democracy, all that matters is a vote counted. And the number of times that I remember when I was running student council elections and it would be very close, and they said, well, we should do a re-election because it was close. I said, no, it was one vote, and that it should be, one vote matters. And I love that message getting sent across, and so if we really felt there was an error in our counting,
that's the point. That's exactly.
Then it's recount, but if it isn't, it can't be recount just because it's close. And so I don't know how you draw a distinction between those two.
Well, a few years back, there was a young man who wanted to be a town meeting member in this town. And he asked me how you go about doing it. So I explained the whole process. You have to go out, you have to get your name on the ballot, you have to campaign, you have to go out and ask people in your precinct to vote for you. It's not easy. I mean, you have to work for it. You just can't put your name on a ballot and hope that people are going to vote for you. So he did. He worked really hard, and he lost by 1 vote for town meeting. And it really shows how every single vote counts. It really does. And I appreciate what you're saying, because people have lost elections by 1 vote.
And that's why I like this article, because it makes the process definitive. And that's especially important, as it was in this case, when there was a question and it was that close. And also, I appreciate the fact that Representative Vieira is already working with Mr. Wasdorp, who has put a lot of effort into this, and so I would recommend it.
The other thing I don't like about it is, I like the fact that people don't know what the majority is voting when they choose how to vote. And I worry that once they hear how other people are going to vote, they're going to change their vote. And I don't think that's appropriate, to change your vote because you heard how people voted.
It's just 2 counters. It's having 2 counters.
That's not what this is saying. It's a mandatory recount after, if any vote's less than a 5-vote difference. I understand Mr. Wasdorp's going to be working for a different recommendation, but that's not what the article is right now, and that's what we have to really go on.
Why don't we consider electronic voting?
Well, we can't do that for this.
No, I know we can't do it now, but
I'd have no problem with that.
No problem with that one. Okay.
Truro does it.
Well, they say a lot
But I'm going to
of other places.
second Sue's motion as printed. And the reason is because I think it's going to force this collaboration, if you will, to come up with a more reliable way of doing vote counting. And I think that's that's what this is addressing. And so if they can come with a substitute article on town meeting, fine. But I think it raises a legitimate question, and it's one that can be addressed, if not by this methodology, then another one that can be worked out between now and town meeting.
I am not comfortable with this methodology, so I would not vote in support of this article as printed. I think it's very likely I will be in support of the reworked article that's going to come forward later. But for this one, I can't recommend it. I would not be able to support a vote recommended as printed.
Yeah, I can't support it either.
But we have a motion second, I believe.
We do.
Further discussion?
To approve it.
Yeah.
To recommend it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. So it will be recommended as printed. Article 23, yes, it's another petitions article dealing with the legislation for authorizing local voting rights for legal permanent resident non-citizens residing in Falmouth green card holders. And I understand the article will be recommended on the floor a little bit differently than we have in front of us. I think the context is still the same, and so while Article 22 I didn't feel I could recommend with the change of it, I think that was more of a major change of the intent and the wording. Well, I think this is just making sure that the vocabulary fits exactly what the special act is, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
If we receive the grammatical changes, we can provide that as the main motion for the board if you prefer.
I would feel much more comfortable with it.
So the main motion would be the article as amended with corrections.
Okay. And I believe the amendments changes are not substantive. It was merely.
That's right. So the motion of the board would be as recommended, and the recommendation would be the corrected main motion.
Okay. And I move as recommended.
So it's printed? As it will be printed?
As it will be printed, all right, okay. And, so I move that we recommend it as printed.
Second.
Motion as second?
As recommended. I'm sorry to be such a...
No, that's what I was trying to say.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, in order for the main motion to be the recommendation, your recommendation will be as recommended, and the recommendation will then become the main motion, which will be the corrected version of the article.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Then I was correct the first time.
You were.
As recommended.
I'm sorry.
I move we recommend this motion as recommended.
Yes. Okay.
Get all those in there.
All those in favor say aye. Sorry,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson wants to
I
comment.
just want to
he's not
support
finished
it,
yet?
just because I have a neighbor who's lived in Falmouth for more than 30 years, a very active member of this community in supporting what goes on. I don't want to mention the name for confidentiality reasons, but this gentleman certainly deserves the opportunity to vote on local issues that have a direct impact on him. And so I'm very much in favor of seeing this go forward. I hope town meeting agrees.
For this town meeting discussion, I do hope there can be some suggestion of what number of people we're talking about.
Oh, potentially, how many would fit into this category?
If it's large enough, it could force us to redistrict. Because if a lot of them are living in one precinct, then all of a sudden, that precinct would have to be, the lines would have to be redrawn to make sure that all precincts have the same number of people in it.
Right.
But I don't think we do that until every 3 or 4 years or something like that.
Right.
Okay, so motion and a second to recommend this as recommended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Article 24. This is to ask the Board of Selectmen to establish a policy regarding the grinder pumps.
I make a motion to recommend indefinite postponement.
Second.
Okay, explanation?
Yes, I'm concerned about the maintenance issue that's been brought up over and over again on grinder pumps. But from my experience, the maintenance is generated by the use. And if we don't make property owners responsible for the use, we're going to have far more maintenance. And especially when the property owners are renting out to renters who are notoriously abusive of property. And so it seems to me that since we have such a large number of rental units, that, the landlords are going to have to charge more to cover the maintenance of these grinder pumps. But I am very much bothered by the fact that the people using them are not going to be the people paying for the maintenance when we know that it's pretty easy to screw up a grinder pump. And that's the cause of most of the failures, is the use of what goes down the drain. And so grinder pump is not new technology. It's very mature technology, and properly used lasts a lot more than 12 years. So I'm opposed to pushing this on. And the other side of it is that the betterment is being shouldered by, 30% of the betterment is being shouldered by people who are not going to get any increase in their property values because we're not going to have sewage for our properties. And so I think we're already carrying a significant burden of putting in the sewage treatment facility, the sewage system into those properties. And we're not going to see any benefit to our housing values, our property values as a result of it. So I think it's not as unfair as a lot of the cases are being presented.
I just had a thought, and in thinking about my house, what do I have as far as meters? I have a water meter, an electric meter, but does the town own my water meter, or do
The town does.
the town owns that?
Yep, and we'll be replacing it every now and then.
And it is replaced, that's correct, that has happened. So now it would be, the town would own the grinder pump? Is that the town would own it?
That's what's asking. It's asking that we come up with a policy that would state that.
And maintain it.
And maintain it. I would think that we would have the ability to write the policy, and that would be up to the board, not up to town meeting as to what exactly said, for the term in which we own them. I'm not sure that I could support that the town would own them indefinitely, and I would be very restrictive as to what kind of maintenance and repair we did. And I think there's a certain length into which I would be willing to go, and want to make it very clear in the policy exactly some of the issues that Sam's talking about, that proper maintenance of it is required. Anything beyond that, it does fall back onto the property owner. And I'm not sure exactly how to create those stipulations. And I would be interested to see how the town meeting feels on this issue also.
Well, I was trying to think about the difference between a water meter and a grinder pump. A grinder pump.
Well, that's,
there's a
I
big-
just want to know who owned them.
Well, that's what I'm getting down to, is
Yeah.
that the town there's a significant advantage to the town. They monitor the water meters. That's how they know what to charge. And they're on the outside of the property, and they are usually now read from the curb because they have instruments now that can read them from the curb. So, because the town doesn't normally enter on private property for any reason like that. So with the grinder pumps, they would actually have to enter not only the person's property, but possibly their home if the grinder pumps were in the basement. So I think there's an issue there. There also might be issues related to easements. The town would have to get
Absolutely.
an easement to go on a person's property. So that would be 750 easements that would have to be negotiated between an attorney and the homeowner. I mean, it's not a simple thing as saying, well, the town owns the water meters, but they can read those from the curb. But with this, you have to actually enter the property and maybe even enter the home itself. I mean, I don't know any of that, but I mean, I'm just thinking that the town does not do things on private property at all. Never have, that I can recall. I don't know for how many years, but in all the years that I can remember, we have never had occasion to nor wanted to access private property for anything. So this would be a huge departure, which would require legal easements. That's just two of the things I can think of that are problematic.
What's the procedure that this goes through town meeting instead of to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, this is just a petitioner's article asking the town meeting to ask us to establish a policy.
Okay.
And so this could be passed at town meeting, and we could say no. We're not going to. It is an advisory to us to ask us to direct a policy, to establish a policy. We could say, we hear you at town meeting, we're not going to do it. We could say, it could pass town meeting, we could say, yes, we hear you, and we're going to do it, and this will be what the policy is. We're not even bound to follow the policy as written here, and it's actually fairly, I mean, it is very general and vague and gives us a wide parameter. I don't think it's what Mr. Gross would want, but we could say, yep, there are property this year, and after that, there are the town owner, but that could be within, following the guidance of that.
Okay.
Just one.
Yep.
I'm just, I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm just really bothered by government being too intrusive on people's property and their land and in their homes. And it's sort of along the lines of what Selectman Flynn was just saying. I think that we've taken every opportunity to give parity, which I think we should continue to give a lot of deference to. However, whether it's putting easements on titles or whether it's making appointments to go into people's cellars and whether the pump is actually, it's a piece of the town's property and someone else's home. I mean, that's, in my mind, that's where to draw the line. And we also go forward with precedents. I mean, you look at the situation in Silver Beach, and then you look at all the future situations of what we're doing in terms of water quality management. There are so many individual circumstances that, I really don't, at some point, I don't think you should cross the threshold, whether from a financial parity point in terms of the taxpayers or from the individual homeowners. So I would put this on postponement.
One point to Mr. Patterson saying that the 30% that we are paying who are not getting the benefit, we are getting the benefit of the water of the estuaries no longer having the sewer systems, the septic system dumped into the water. And so, I mean, it isn't an individual property value, but it is a increased property value for the entire town. And so there is some benefit we're getting.
The taxpayers.
That's why I was in favor of the 30% split. I was happy to shoulder that piece.
So what, are you making a motion about
I thought it had been
You
moved.
made it.
Indefinite.
Yeah. You made it, I second.
Motion and second for indefinite postponement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. Do you feel we have information as to explanation for the indefinite postponement?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Do we have that?
All right, and now we have Article 2 of the special town meeting.
Correct. The petition article.
Is the petition article.
I don't know if I have that. I'm just looking for that today.
It's a separate sheet.
Oh,
It's not in that too.
Do we have to deal with this one also?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, you
Actually,
did.
before we move on to Article 2,
Good catch.
we do have Article 40. This is the Lawrence Academy deed restriction article. I'll
Okay.
pass this out to you.
Yep. That's what I was looking for.
So Article 40 has to do with Lawrence Academy, located at 20 Academy Lane. And we have a recommendation in front of us. It's been suggested that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute a declaration of restrictions to be recorded at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds restricting for a term of 30 years a portion of a town-owned structure for the purpose of preserving the exterior architectural features repaired with Community Preservation Act funds pursuant to terms deemed appropriate by the Board of Selectmen and the Community Preservation Commission. Town-owned structure is commonly known as Lawrence Academy, located at 20 Academy Lane, Falmouth, Massachusetts, which property is described as Assessor's Map 38A 09013A000.
I'm,
Yeah, Pat? Mr. Patterson?
I move that we recommend this as printed.
I have a question.
Yep.
It says, a declaration of restrictions on a portion of the structure. Which portion of the structure are we talking about?
I think
Is
we
it
were
just
talking about the cupola.
cupola only?
Yeah. Portico and cupola.
Portico and cupola.
Yeah.
The what?
Portico and the cupola are the only two pieces that are going to be paid for under CPC fund.
Oh, the portico and the cupola.
And just to remind the board that you took that issue up and agreed to do that
We did.
some time
Right,
ago.
sometime back.
In the
Yep.
spring.
I just wanted to be sure. Second.
Oh, good. Okay.
And so it is a recommendation as recommended. It's not what
Okay, yes,
actually
I'm
was
sorry.
printed in the article.
Yes,
So this
as
time-
recommended.
right.
And let me say, I thanks Heather for catching the fact that there's a 30-year limit, because that apparently is a state regulation that limits, when you have a partial historical restriction, it is limited to 30 years. And I saw that in the original article, but we're going to have to amend that at some point, but you have done that through your recommendation, and that's a good move.
Virginia Carmichael, chairman of the CPC, caught that, so we need to give her credit for that.
Okay, good. I heard it from her anyway, so.
Yes.
So we had a motion to recommend as recommended in front of us.
Right, in a second.
And a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, the ayes have it. Now we'll move on to special town meeting, Article 2. This is the petitioner's article to see if the town will vote to support the Board of Selectmen's efforts toward maximizing the benefits and minimizing any financial burden to Falmouth citizens. I can't see voting against an article. It's asking the town to support what we're doing.
I would move to, what's the word? What are we doing?
As
Recommend.
printed.
Recommend is printed.
Article 2 is printed.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any phraseology we want to put in our explanation as to why we're voting?
Well, I don't
Support
have
this.
an explanation here, so I'm not sure. Do you, is there one there?
No.
No?
Beyond saying we appreciate the hearing the town support
Well-
of what we're doing?
Well, I think it's kind of reminding, what the selectmen are doing their best to really bring the town meeting vote to fruition, and I think that there's a balance here with this article.
Well, we could say the selectmen have had a long-term commitment to the installation and the operation of the turbines as a mode of reducing the cost of energy to the town. And this represents the continuation of our commitment to that. How many years ago? 2006? Well, I came back on the board in 2007, and it was already in place, so it had to be either 6 or before. So that's a long commitment. That's almost, what, 10 years at least, or more? So it's a long-term commitment that we have made to renewable energy. And I think that's what this represents.
One thing I do appreciate in this article, it does not tell us to ignore the neighbors.
No.
The wording is that we are working to maximize the benefits
Yep.
and minimizing the financial burden. And I appreciate that that's what the article is supporting. I don't think it really gives any direction. That if this passes, I think we will continue to do what we're doing as opposed to going in some other direction. So I'm not sure I understand exactly, I appreciate the support, I'm not sure I understand the exact intent.
Well, I agree, but I'm not sure that they can specify the final outcome either, because it's going to be a negotiated settlement at some point if we're allowed to continue to operate those wind turbines. We're going to have to come to some accommodation, and that's not predictable at this point. But it may, I liked Pat's second use and said renewable, commitment to renewable energy. I think that word should get in there as far as the explanation is concerned. You originally said just energy, but I'd like to see us say commitment to renewable energy.
Right. It represents our strong commitment to fostering renewable energy in its various components, or whatever. Various iterations.
Sam?
Can I just mention, and this would have come up in my selectmen's report, but I attended the Massachusetts Municipal Association's selectmen's meeting on Saturday. And MMA is taking a very strong commitment with, I think, unanimous support from all the 351 municipalities across the state toward investing in renewable energy sources. So you're hearing it there. And then Lieutenant Governor Polito spoke to us that morning, and the Baker administration has a strong commitment toward investing in renewable energy. And their motivation is really trying to make sure that we can support vital economic conditions. They're not even mentioning climate change, but they're worried about making sure that the state has adequate energy supplies, because energy is what moves everything and makes everything. And if we can't be sure that we're going to have energy, sufficient energy in the future, we're going to start suffering from the degradation of our quality of life and our ability to maintain a vibrant economy. So that's their motivation for supporting this. And they're talking about raising the net metering caps so that more solar energy or more renewable energy can be actually sold to the grid. And so there's really pretty unanimous support across the state level at this point.
So where were we? Do we have motion and second on this?
Yep, sorry.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. I also understand that you have authorized the town manager and I to draft explanations. They will not be coming back to you before they go to the printer.
Oh, that's fine.
They will not be coming back to you before they go to the printer.
No, we accept that.
Oh, before they go.
Which is consistent with past practice.
Absolutely. Full
Thank you.
confidence.
I think we're now on to our reports.
Right.
Do we have any individual selectmen's reports?
I do. Can I start?
You may begin.
Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
Sure. Just before the meeting, attended the older women workers
Ron,
and...
excuse me.
Shush, I'm speaking.
Please. It's amazing how we can't hear when people are talking back there.
It is. It
You'll never-
reverberates. And I have a
Thank
loud
you.
voice.
All right, thank you.
So, I was saying, I attended the Older Women Workers and Economic Security Roundtable that Penny Doobie put together at the Tilden Studio Theater at Cape Cod Community College. And the big take from that is that Cape Cod Community College is really doing a lot to put businesses who need workers together with workers of all ages, even though the group was focusing on women and older folks and older women. In that light, I just want to let everyone know, there is a boot camp coming up Thursday, October 22nd, called the Experienced Older Job Seeker Boot Camp. It is designed for those who have been unsuccessful finding a job. It's going to have career opportunities from 9 to 1, and it's going to be held at 372 North Street in Hyannis. So it's a good opportunity for employers to get great employees and to do some networking if you are looking for a job. So those are the big takes for today.
Anyone else?
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
No, go ahead.
Paul Rifkin, formerly of Falmouth, and living in Mashpee, I think, but is still very, very interested in social services, if you will. And he's put together a meeting on homelessness in Falmouth, which is going to be Thursday night at the LaPointe Church. And trying to, and as you know, there's been a lot in the press in Hyannis about the whole issue of homelessness. And it hasn't really quite hit the press here in town, but we know it's there. And even though we don't see it, perhaps we know it's in our town as well. So Paul is going to convene a group at the church on Thursday night at 7. I told him I would come. And so if anybody else is interested, I think that would be a good thing. And what's the other thing? I have to look at this to see. Can't remember what the other project is.
Olympic Village.
What?
Olympic Village?
Oh, yeah. Well, we can report on the Olympic Village, which is the 31 acres on Route 151 that's owned by the partners at Ballyme. And there's been a group, the Olympic Village Support Group, that's been working for quite a few months now, and working with the partners. Sue and I have been the selectmen liaisons to that group. And we've done surveys, there have been public meetings, about 3 public meetings. There's one more to come. And we're really sort of fleshing out, based on the public meetings and the surveys, what the community would like to see out there on that parcel. It's 31 acres? And so I think what it's come down to is an Olympic pool, a pool facility, or not maybe an Olympic pool, but a pool facility. And obviously the partners are interested in some kind of commercial arrangement, either retail space, and also we're looking at housing. I know in Plymouth at the forget the name of the project out there, they have top of the shop housing, and that's something to think about out there on this land, because there isn't a lot of land. I mean, 31 acres, when you try to do a lot, isn't everything, but to be able to consider top of the shop housing, micro units or something like that. So when we have jobs in town for people that young people can apply for, they'd be able to stay in a micro unit or something, and it wouldn't be so expensive for them. And what's the other piece that I'm missing, Heather?
Just to follow up, there hasn't been a final concept
No, nothing's
presented.
final. These are just ideas.
But the ideas that have come out of the public process include making a commitment to sustaining as much open space on the parcel as possible. There's been a lot of interest about any agricultural features that might be part of an overall development, but clearly with an interest that the property would be developed in most cases, so long as that is in mind of the agricultural nature of the property and history of the property. In terms of the development of recreational assets, it's been pretty strong on the pool, but also on indoor playing surfaces, large scale, that would provide a year-round recreational amenity for the community, something that adds to the vitality of the town, does the types of things that this board's talked about in terms of recruiting families and working families and providing more balance to the economy and our environment. So we'll be presenting a concept plan just based on 8 or 9 different visions that were both developed by the Cape Cod Commission. All of their services in the survey has been at no cost to the town. Of course, we are assessed by the commission, so we do pay for those services ultimately. But that will simply provide a guide for the developers to know what tolerances the town may have in terms of balanced uses. So it'll be interesting. The workshop's on the 14th at 6:30 at the Herman Foundation meeting room.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes, if I could
Go ahead.
continue talking about some of the comments that Lieutenant Governor Polito mentioned at that meeting. I'm actually quite impressed with the approach that they seem to be taking. They seem to be very conscientious, very talented people. They're really working across party lines. It seems like a really pragmatic administration. I'm, impressed with what I'm seeing. I think it's also interesting that, they keep telling us how they come out of local government backgrounds. And it shows, because they are worried about unfunded mandates and that sort of thing, and they're voicing it over and over again. And when you look at some of the things that they're trying to do, it looks like they're taking it seriously. Now, of course, they've got to get these things through the legislature, but they emphasize the fact that they're meeting with the legislature on a weekly basis, collaborating, trying to figure out how they can, advance programs, go back and revisit regulations to see whether there's not a more efficient way for Massachusetts to govern itself. So that was an overall take from a couple of exposures to Lieutenant Governor Polito. One of the nice initiatives they got on, that they're on, that all of us can relate to, is trying to make our registry of motor vehicles more efficient, so we don't spend so much time waiting there. And they've got a number of ideas that they're going to try to implement in terms of how, those things, licenses and registration are processed to make things move more smoothly. So
Back to Falmouth?
well, that would be nice. Cut the travel time. Don't know. She didn't mention anything like that specifically. Let's see. I mentioned about their commitment toward diversifying energy sources to help make sure that in the future we have that economic base that we need. Let's see. There's a big emphasis on trying to help communities maintain their economic vitality or develop their economies, especially those gateway cities that have been in decline for a long time. So they're putting a lot of emphasis. I attended one of the regional meetings, so you see them putting out the feelers as to how can we help you. So I think that that's likely, but that's an emphasis. That the opiate abuse that we have is big. We've heard Governor Baker talk about it, but they seem to be very serious about trying to come up with ways of trying to mitigate these problems and intervene early on so that they don't grow to what we're seeing today, which is pretty sad. And then well, let's see. So that's it for that. Also part of this morning conference, I attended a collective bargaining session to talk about those processes that every town has to go through. Also, another one is just holding public meetings. So these are sort of training sessions that go along with this. But it was a very valuable meeting, and as I mentioned to Julian before the meeting, I think we can be very happy with the MMA administrators. Jeff Becker, the director, and John Robertson, who is a legislative liaison. They are hardworking, articulate people, and I'm very impressed with how they represent us at the state level. So good feel, continue getting a good feel from my contacts with our Massachusetts Municipal Association. The last thing I want to report on, just because I think it's important, and Mark brought it up, and that's the Lawrence Witness Project. There was a meeting last week. Some of the things that have been sort of decided. It's an advisory committee. It's not an official building committee per se, but one thing that they have a consensus on is that those muntins, the things that look like, they turn large panels of glass into what looks like small sash type. They're going to put those on the inside of the thermal pane when the hurricane glass is out to cut the costs down. And they're going to do it only on the front of the building to maintain the historic looks of the building, and won't be doing that on the back. but it will allow maintenance to be easy because they won't have to be cleaning those lattice-like things that'll be in between the thermal pane windows, so they don't have to worry about maintaining that. Let's see. They would like to go ahead and move forward. They're exploring removing the art room, shop, and gym skylights. I think the cafeteria also. They're prone toward leaks. It'll be a lot less expensive if you could just roof over that, and because we have efficient lighting these days, we don't need that skylights anymore. They're exploring that. They need to talk to the building commissioner, make sure that what they're proposing will be acceptable. But that's another initiative to kind of cut the cost down and give us a more maintainable building, because it's a lot less expensive to replace roofs than it is to replace, windows and such. Then just quickly mention, I had mentioned the consideration of the door sizes on the front of the building. They're going to stick with the same dimensions. The doors will be replaced as the existing doors. There are 2 ramp entrances on either side of the front of the building. Those have 36-inch doors, which is meeting the ADA requirements. They're going to stay with those. But the other doors that are 32 inches wide have steps that lead to them, and so you're not going to get a wheelchair up there anyway. So essentially the door sizes will remain the same. That was an issue and that's going to save a fair amount of money as well. So that's kind of where it is. They expect to have RFPs out around the end of October, 1st of November, and maybe bids back, around by the 1st of December. Work won't begin, of course, until next summer, but that's the progress at this point. So it's moving along and looks good, and I think everybody's pushing toward trying to lower that cost down as best we can, and that's it.
Ms. Moffett?
I think I'm going to, we went to a meeting today concerning the senior center, and I'll let Heather do it.
I was going to turn it over to Julian.
I think Julian could do it also.
No, we've had 2 meetings today regarding the senior center, and it really is just a report that we're continuing on the same path. You recall that the board voted for further study of the school administration building, reuse and sharing of that facility, the parcel by the tennis courts at the high school, and the property currently the location of the varsity soccer field. So we heard an update on that reporting status, including some generalized cost estimates, operating costs, none of which we're prepared to release at this point, but just that effort is continuing to move forward. Things aren't as clear as they might like to be on some of the locations, and it's really obvious that there's a significant amount of work to be done, particularly with the school department in terms of ultimately making that site selection that may cause, additional need for additional services and study depending on the location the board's interested in.
I approve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one item, just wanted to confirm, it was my pleasure to team up with Selectman Chair Doug Jones in presenting a brief PowerPoint summary of the respective roles of the town manager and the Board of Selectmen at this past Thursday evening's session of the Falmouth Citizens Municipal Academy. It was an interesting and lively discussion, and we were very pleased to also be joined by Rebecca Moffett and Sam Patterson and have them participate with us. So it was a good evening all around, and happy that we could participate. That concludes my report.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn. We'll see you in 2 weeks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
I would like to note